This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome. You are in the lab room. Of course, I am your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me. Mid-season outlook, bringing you up to speed on every single team in the National Football League at the midpoint of the season. We've already done the NFC West. Now we're doing the AFC West, where one of the best teams in the league reside, the Denver Broncos, and that's where we start. 6-2 on the season, leading this division. One of the best teams in the league. It's what you expect. It's Peyton Manning. It's Juice. It's Demaryius Thomas. It's Emmanuel Sanders. Wes Welker. It's everybody. It's the whole gang. And it's all led by, of course, the puppet master, the sheriff himself, Peyton Manning. They're getting it done on the offensive side of football. I think what's going to separate them from the fate that they ended up having last season is the defense. And I think one of the keys defensively is going to be their ability to get pressure on the quarterback. We'll talk about that here in a second. But offensively, one more thing before we move on. Offensively, this team needs the running game to be better than it's been thus far in this season. I like Ronnie Hillman a lot. Probably a little bit better than Monty Ball in the offense because he gives them a little bit of explosiveness. But it'll be interesting to see what happens when Monty Ball comes back. Will that two-headed monster be better than one or the other? We will see. But Denver right now, offensively, they're getting it done. I'd like to see them be a little bit more effective defensively, though. They're 5-0 at home, 1-2 on the road, 2-0 in the division, and 4-1 in the conference. So looking at that right now, 5-0 at home means they've played a heck of a lot of home games already. Again, we're in week number 10. And so to already have played 5 home games means you've got a lot of road games coming your way down the stretch. Again, they're 1-2 on the road. So 5 home games, only 3 on the road. So they've got the inverse of that coming down the stretch. 5 road games, 3 at home. So they've got to find a way to take care of business. Right now, they've got a losing record on the road. But again, they've played their 2 losses on the road, which are the same 2 losses on the season, have come against arguably 2 of the best teams in the league. In Seattle, which is the toughest place to play in the league, and in New England, which isn't easy to get a win there either. And so you're talking about 2 of the best teams in the league. Those are their 2 losses, so nothing to be ashamed of there. They've got to take care of business in the division. They're 2-0 right now. They've got to continue doing that. If they're going to continue to try to battle for that #1 seed in the AFC, they need to continue to win in this division. They got Oakland coming up. Speaking of which, let's run down the list of games quickly. At Oakland, at St. Louis, home for Miami, at Kansas City, home for Buffalo, at San Diego, at Cincinnati, home for Oakland. That is a tough stretch of football. A lot of away games there. Going to have to find a way to get it done. And I think down the stretch, the keys for this team down the stretch are going to be the following. Consistency at the field goal kicking position. I'm not sold on Brandon McManus. I don't like Brandon McManus. I don't like what he brings to the table. And so I know you had to do what you had to do with Matt Prater, but he scares me. That's one thing you got to pay attention to. The health of Von Miller. I think this defense is only going to be as good as Von Miller is. And if he's healthy, this team is different defensively. In limited rushes at the quarterback, he's already got 9 sacks. Across from him, DeMarcus Ware has 8. If there's no Von Miller, there's no DeMarcus Ware getting 8 sacks. So this defense is only going to be as good as Von Miller is, and he needs to stay healthy for them to have any shot in 2014. And also, their rushing offense, kind of touched on that already. That's something that needs to improve as the season wears on. As it gets colder, they're going to need to be able to run the football a little bit more effectively in Denver. That's going to do it for the 6-2 Denver Broncos. Tough stretch of football coming up. 5 road games, only 3 home ones left. They've got to take care of business if they want to be the #1 seed in the AFC. Now, we move on to the second place team currently in this division, the Quietly, one of the surprising teams in 2014 is the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs. And maybe if you ask a Kansas City Chiefs fan, they'll tell you there's nothing surprising about us being 5-3 at the mid-season point of 2014. We feel like we're a good football team, and we feel like we should be right where we are. And I would beg to differ. I thought they lost a lot in the offseason. I didn't think they were able to replenish. I thought that wide receiver was a big need that they didn't address. I just thought this team was going in the wrong direction. I thought they regressed from a season ago, but as fate would have it, this team has hit their stride. They got off to a slow start, very sluggish start for Kansas City. Didn't look good in the opening portion of the season. They started out the season 1-2. Looked lost. That opening loss to Tennessee was bad. No Dwayne Bowe in that game, but it just didn't look like a team that was going to be ultra competitive this season. And then defensively, they started to hit their stride. And that defense is what's carrying them again. They're dominant defensively. Once again, they've allowed the second fewest points in the NFL this year with 138 only. That is dental floss thin. Only team better is the Detroit Lions right now with 126. So they're getting it done defensively. Once again are the Kansas City Chiefs. The offense, though, this is the thing that's a little different this year that I think gives them a better opportunity to potentially compete down the line. The offense is generating points, and it's not like it was last year where you got two games that are outliers, that Redskins game, that Oakland game late in the season, were two outliers that kind of spiked your point production. You really weren't a team that scored a lot of points last year. And the defense also generated turnovers that got into the end zone last year. This is the offense is doing here. This year, you've scored 34 in Miami, 41 against New England, 23 on the road against San Diego, and another 34 at home versus St. Louis. The offense did most of the damage in those games. You may have a return here, a return there, but for the most part, on special teams, for the most part, the offense is doing damage this season, unlike last year. So offensively, I think this team is better. And want me to tell you why? Two reasons why this offense was a little bit more better. You've got an emerging star at the tight end position in Travis Kelce. This kid is legit. He is akin to Rob Gronkowski. He's not as dominant as Gronkowski right now, but the kid has the skills in the arsenal and the size to be just as problematic as Rob Gronkowski moving forward. This kid is getting it done for the Chiefs, giving them an alternate option other than Dwayne Bowe. Also, you've got a 1-2 punch at the running back position. Niall Davis and Jamal Charles. Never ever trust a man with two first names. Those guys are running the football extremely well, so that also takes a little bit of pressure off of Captain Shutdown. And he's up to his old tricks. Alex Smith, 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's getting it done. So this team playing some good football. 3-1 at home, 2-2 on the road, which is huge right now because they've got some huge road victories. That one against Miami, they needed that in the worst way. They got it. And that one against San Diego really sent San Diego into a tizzy and really gave this Chiefs team some confidence. 4-2 in the conference, which is excellent, which is going to help you get in the postseason if we start talking tiebreakers. And 1-1 in the division. Not a lot of divisional games under your belt right now. Going to have to make sure you clean up within the division. Can't lose to the Raiders. Going to have to take care of games at the house against Denver and possibly San Diego. Going to have to make sure that you get those games if you are the Kansas City Chiefs. Remaining schedule looks like this. At Buffalo, home for Seattle, at Oakland, home for Denver, at Arizona, versus Oakland at home, at Pittsburgh, and home for San Diego. Tough stretch of football. Got a couple of them on the road there that are going to be tough to get. At Buffalo is always tricky. Arizona on the road, that's going to be a tough one. And Pittsburgh is playing some inspired football right now. That's also going to be a tough get on the road. And then, of course, between every one of those games, you've got a divisional game with the exception of Seattle, which is at home. That's going to be a big one as well. So looking for the Chiefs to try to find a way to jockey for positioning in the AFC. It's a lot going on, and they're going to have to find a way to navigate their way through all the traffic in the AFC, especially within their own division, if they're going to make the postseason for a second consecutive season. Now we go to the third place team in the AFC West, the San Diego Superchargers. Dominant start for the San Diego Chargers. San Diego Superchargers. Started the season 5-1 after losing a heartbreaker in the opening week on Monday night to the Arizona Cardinals. They bounced back with 5 consecutive wins, including a win at home versus the defending Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. And this team looked to have it on tilt, shutting out the Jets and really playing some extremely efficient football on the offensive side of the ball. But then things changed in one single week with a loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. All of a sudden now this team can't find their way. Now what happened? What changed from 1 week of domination to the next? And you ask yourself, and they started out the season 4 out of their first 6 games. They scored 30 points or more in those contests. So they were getting it done offensively. We were talking about Phillip Rivers possibly being MVP of the league. Now all of a sudden this team is struggling offensively. Subsequently, they've been on a 3-game losing streak because of the offensive struggles. And you can chalk it up to some injuries. You've got the injuries to the cornerback position. Brandon Flowers went down. Jason Verrett's going to be out a couple more weeks. You had Jaleel Adai get a concussion. There's some injuries there in the secondary, definitely. Then you look at Danny Woodhead. I know he went down early in the season, and you've won games without him, but you're going to feel the lack of his presence at some point. He's a guy that Phillip Rivers loves checking the football down to. He's a difference maker. He's not coming back. So that's another area of weakness right now. And you're not running the football very well. Okay, Donald Brown went down with an injury. Since he's come back, and Brandon Oliver was a nice story, but this running game, all of your running backs are averaging less than 4 yards a carry. That's not good. So there's a lot of reasons why the Chargers are struggling. And you know the defense is going to struggle if the offense doesn't have it on track. Again, this is a defense that doesn't stay on the field long because of the ball control nature of the offense that keeps them off the field and keeps them fresh. Now with the offense struggling, defense on the field a little bit more, now you're starting to see some glaring weaknesses with this team. So now you go to their home record. They're 3-1 at home, which is great. 2-3 on the road, however. They've got to find ways to win because they're not winning their division. They're not going to be a number 1, 2, or 3 seed. They're going to have to go on the road. If they make the postseason, it's as a 5 seed. It's as a 6 seed. They're going to have to go on the road if they're going to get it done. So they need to be better on the road. 4-3 in the conference and 1-2 in the division. If you don't win in the division, you're not going to make the postseason. So that means you can't lose to the Raiders. You need to beat Kansas City the next time you see them. And it would be nice if you could get Denver. If not, fine. But you can't. I don't think you could afford to lose maybe one more game. If you go 3-3 in the division, you might stand an outside chance in making the postseason. This is what the remaining schedule looks like. Home for Oakland, home for St. Louis, at Baltimore, home for New England, home for Denver, at San Francisco, at Kansas City. So as you can see, a heavy stretch of home games down the stretch. 7 games left, 4 of them at home in San Diego. And they need to get every single one of those home games as you've got a tough road slate at Baltimore, at Kansas City, and at San Francisco down the road. So that's going to do it for the San Diego Chargers, sitting at 5-4 and currently 3rd in the AFC West. Now let's bring up the rear with the Oakland Raiders as we finish up the AFC West. So now we're talking Oakland Raiders football, the only winless team in the National Football League right now, residing at 0-8 on the season. They fired their head coach, Dennis Allen, after a abysmal showing over in London versus the Miami Dolphins in week number 4. And so after that, in comes interim head coach Tony Sparano. This team has been competitive each and every single week since then, but they still do not have a win to their name. And here's the biggest reason why. Lowest amount of points scored in the National Football League at 129. You're not going to win in this league if you don't score points. I know it sounds like I'm being Captain Obvious right now, but this is an ongoing problem for the Raiders each and every single year. They don't score enough points. You're not going to score 13 and win in this league unless your defense is dominant, which the Raiders defense is not. You're not going to win scoring 16 or 17 points. You got to score up over 20 routinely to give yourself a chance on a weekly basis. And let's face it, the Raiders don't score that many points. And the bad part about it is they've got the 4th worst point differential in the league at -82. They've given up 211 points on the season, and they've only scored 129. Keep in mind, you've scored less points than the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Tennessee Titans. And the Tennessee Titans are god-awful on offense. I mean, are you kidding me? Raiders got to ratchet it up offensively in the defense. I think if the offense plays better, the defense will play better as well. What I want to see from this Raiders team down the stretch, they've got 8 games left. What I want to see from this Raiders team is the following things. I want to see Khalil Mack get a sack for the silver and black. Get the quarterback on the ground while he's still holding the football. What a concept. Look, you've already shown us that you're a dominant run-stuffing defender. That's great. Glad you got a dominant trait. However, let's get the quarterback. Look, the Raiders didn't draft you number 5 overall to get guys on the ground in the run game. Only they drafted you because you could do everything. Drop into coverage, stop the run, and sack the quarterback. Well, we haven't seen that yet. How about we get some of that? Sack the quarterback, Khalil Mack. I also want to see Tony Sperano get a win. This team is nowhere near as bad as that dreadful 2008 Detroit Lions football team that didn't win a football game. I don't think this team is anywhere near that football team. And so this team is going to win a game. They're not that bad. I don't see them going 0-16. They're going to get someone. We'll run down the schedule and we'll try to pick out a win for them somewhere when we get there. Also, Derek Carr, I want to continue to see him play well. I think he's playing outstanding football. I think he's stamped himself as the Oakland Raiders starting quarterback moving forward. I like what he's doing, and I want to continue to see him mature as a quarterback. And I think that Reggie McKenzie actually did a great job this past offseason of drafting players. Don't like what he did in free agency, but I love what he did in the draft. Jelly Ellis, TJ Carey, Derek Carr, Khalil Mack, and Gabe Jackson are all keepers out of that draft. And so I like what the Oakland Raiders have done with some of the young players that they've brought onto this roster. Now you look at these games quickly. Home for Denver, at San Diego, home for Kansas City, at St. Louis, home for San Francisco, at Kansas City, home for Buffalo, at Denver to wrap up the season. That St. Louis game sticks out like a sore thumb. That's one you can get. Ultimately, though, when it's all said and done, I think you're going to win a game within the division. That's where I think you're going to win. I think you're going to get Kansas City one time. That's the team that I think ultimately, when it's all said and done, that you're going to be able to beat and get on the board if you are the Oakland Raiders. And that's going to do it for the AFC West as we break down the midpoint of the 2014 season for every team in the National Football League. See you in a bit as we continue to get down all of these teams.
In the lab.